So, the Academy Awards, again, they were last night. You had a lot of big winners, a lot of big losers. You know what didn't lose? Flow. Flow, the first animated Latvian film to be nominated for an Academy Award, took home the big award for Best Animated Feature Film. Amongst some pretty stiff competition, in my honest opinion. I've seen most of the nominees here. The only one I didn't see was the Snail movie. But I saw Inside Out 2. I saw The Wild Robot, and I saw Wallace and Gromit: Avengers Most Foul, and I loved all these films. Flow is just the most recent one that I've seen. And personally, I think Inside Out 2 and The Wild Robot were a little more worthy, but Flow ended up winning. And a lot of people walked away after watching this film really enjoying it. And, I want to talk in more detail about Flow and my overall thoughts on the film. I think I can understand as to why it won. It certainly has a lot of great things within it. But for people that aren't familiar with Flow, of course, this Latvian animated movie, it primarily focuses on this seemingly post-apocalyptic world in which humanity has been wiped out. We don't know exactly what happened. Perhaps it was this massive flood, right? But human civilizations, for as far as we know, has gone extinct. And so the animals, chat, it's the day of the animals, right? And there's no Leslie Nielsen fighting a grizzly bear, sadly. But the day of the animals is here, and these animals are trying to survive in this post-apocalyptic world. Now, it's not like irradiated and stuff like that, but it's an ecological disaster of some sort, right? This massive flood that kind of comes and goes and engulfs the world in water. It keeps flowing everywhere. And we primarily focus on several animals, namely a cat just trying to survive, at first on its own, and then later on these other animal companions on a boat. And, because they're all different species and they all have certain ways of doing things, there's conflict, but they have to come together in some ways to survive as they go and try to survive across this, huge journey. First of all, the movie is beautiful. Now, the animation isn't on the same level as something like The Wild Robot, Inside Out 2. No, it's not. However, that's not to say that it isn't great, isn't beautiful in its own unique way. The environments look fantastic. The character models, although clearly not as advanced as character models that we often see in a lot of animated fare. Certainly 3D animated fare, not on the same level, but they're certainly beautiful and charming, and they have a lot of character. Like, the filmmakers do a great job. Because these animals aren't going around, talking. It's not like you got Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck in a post-apocalyptic environment, them going back and forth and bickering, trying to survive, right? Trying to survive in open water and picking up fucking, a half-eaten Porky Pig and Taz, who's gone crazy, Chad, and Foghorn Leghorn, who's just like, I'm the captain now, and is just saying racist shit. It's not that. Okay, these are regular animals trying to survive. You get a little black cat, you get a capybara, you get a dog, you get a lemur, and you get a big old secretary bird. And some other animals show up throughout the film as well, but it's primarily focused on those 5. That's your core group. And the animation for them, I think it works very well. Their personalities come across, despite not being anthropomorphic or anything like that. And I think that's totally fine. And the environmental storytelling in the world is great. Like, again, they don't go into too much detail as to what exactly happened. You just have to assume, like, some type of ecological disaster has wiped out humanity. Maybe it has to do with this massive flooding. Maybe it's other things we don't know. But the animals are basically exploring these places of human civilization, and you see the world through their eyes. And that in itself is, like, really interesting. I appreciate environmental storytelling in film, and certainly like in video games and stuff, but it is so essential for this movie because there is not a single line of dialogue. All these animals either meowing or barking or chittering or squawking or whatever a fucking capybara does. I don't know what does it bark? Does it roar? Does it chitter? I'm not sure, but it does something in the movie. Growls maybe moans, burps. I'm not sure. Like, that's all you're doing. And they don't provide you, like, by the end of the movie to the beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, they don't, if you think we're going to get answers to what happened in this world, nope. They do not do that because it's just solely focused on these animals and what they go through and how arduous their journey is. And I feel like if you approach the film in that way and just knowing that, then it's great. It reminded me of a video game I played a couple years ago, a really good video game called Stray. Or even though I feel like that video game does more to explain the world as to what happened to humanity and everything like that, it does take a similar approach where you're just seeing this all through the eyes of a cat. And then again, it's not an anthropomorphized cat. It's not talking and shit. It's just going through this world, seeing what it's seeing and interacting with the various aspects of it in a unique way, in a very unhuman way. And I think that's really cool. I think that's great. There are moments in the movie, and they're few and far between, where they get a little, how do I say, metaphysical. It only happens at one point where I'm thinking like, wait, what the hell just happened? It's that kind of thing where it's like, well, you got to interpret that. What do you think it was? I'm like, well, I guess I think it's this. And you're like, cool, right? But I feel like a lot of people will think differently on a certain scene in this movie. It's very odd. It was kind of the moment in the film that felt... It's the moment in the film that didn't feel as natural the rest of the movie. It's the one moment that kind of came in there and went like, what are we doing? And for some people, it'll work really well. I would love to go into more detail, but it's kind of a spoiler for the film. It does involve one of the other animals. It just made me go, it's like, why are we suddenly just bringing science fiction and fantasy into all this where you've kind of kept this relatively like pretty grounded for the most part? It's like, yes, you have these animals like at some points like having to work together and stuff like that. Sure. Especially towards the end of the film. But I think it's earned by that point, and so you just kind of go with it because they're friends. But there's just one moment where I'm like, wait, what's happening? and again, they do not explain that in any detail. They just kind of let it naturally just happen, and then it's like, all right, let's get back to the main plot. But if you're worried about this film like lacking dialogue, if you think that's going to make it boring, or have the pacing just feel like it's meandering and just not work all that much at all, rest assured, even though I had my own misgivings about that, it's like, okay, no dialogue. This is mostly a silent film. Are the emotions going to come across for all these creatures that you come to meet in the movie? And they do. They really do. Like the cat, the little black cat is adorable in this film. That's the first one you follow. It's the one that you mostly focus on throughout the movie. It's a great protagonist. It does everything you expect a cat to do. It's very adorable. And when this cat is in harrowing positions, you feel that throughout the film. And I really like that. Because Capybara is like, he's the Capybara in this movie who, it's just funny, as an aside, when I was like, because Katrina and I watched the movie together, where I was later talking to my family, my aunt, about the film as well. And I was like, oh, yeah. So in the film, you follow a cat, a dog, a lemur, a secretary bird, and a chupacabra. That would have been, it's not a chupacabra, it's a capybara, but I accidentally said chupacabra. And that would have been an amazing movie. If you had like a Mexican, like mythological creature, that would have been really badass. That would have been really cool. I would have loved that movie. It's not a chupacabra, it's a capybara. A capybara is just like, hey, man, I'm just going to chill. I'm going to sleep. I'm going to do my thing. I seem lazy, but he's like the most loyal best friend. That's what this capybara is. That's the guy that's going to always have your fucking back in any situation. It's like he's going to sleep a lot, but then when you need him the most, that's when he'll be there for you, which is great. Capybara is like one of the best supporting characters in the film. Loved him. Dog is dog. He's a big derp. He's just like, he's a good boy, but he's just like, he doesn't know that some bad's happen, doesn't know there's a post-apocalypse going on. He's just like, you want to play fetch with me? You want to scritch my head? Can you give me scritches? Can you give me a pet? I love you. I love all my friends. Like, he's very much that. He gets distracted. Squirrel, rabbit. It's like, that's what you deal with dog. And he's very charming and adorable, sure. Lemur, he's a little fucking kleptomaniac. He just wants all the shinies. He's a greedy son of a bitch. If he sees a shiny spoon, if he sees a shiny mirror or like a glass or something, he's like, give me that shit. He's the crackhead in the group, all right? Like, he's the one you can't really rely on. He's very funny, though, because he's a little kleptomaniac crackhead, so there is that, but he will still come to your aid eventually. He'll be a little late. He won't be like immediately there like the capybara or the dog. But if you like a little crackhead kleptomaniac friend, he's the one that's a part of this group. He's a good time. And then you get the secretary bird, who is I would say the most mysterious of the group, certainly the most regal, very, very loyal, but also to a degree a little aloof, right? And they do something with the Secretary Bird in this film that, like, all the films with the Secretary Bird are great. One really horrifying scene, honestly, that made me feel really bad. But there's like a moment in the movie where it's between the cat and the Secretary Bird and something weird happens. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Because it doesn't make any sense to me. I can interpret what the scene means, but at the same time, it's like, what are we saying here? Like, what was the point? You've kept this, for the most part, pretty goddamn grounded, and then he introduces a kind of a crazy element. So the Secretary Bird is the weird friend. The Secretary Bird is the Matthew McConaughey from True Detective. You know, that's what it is. It's just like the cat's like, oh, how did you sleep last night? You know, Secretary Bird's like, oh, I don't sleep. I just dream. That's what the Secretary Bird is like in this movie. And again, a very charming character. Just fucking weird is all I'm saying. But overall, if you have any misgivings about the lack of dialogue in this film, don't worry. The personalities come across for all these characters. Some of the action scenes are really well put together. The use of water and water plays a huge role in this movie. That's really great. And it's beautifully animated. It's not, in my opinion, on the same level as something like A Wild Robot or Inside Out 2 in terms of the look, but it does just enough where it looks very beautiful and it keeps you invested the entire time. So Flow, a great animated film. Maybe I wouldn't have had it win Best Animated Movie for this past Oscars, but I think you'll end up really enjoying it because I certainly really enjoyed it. But what about you guys? I'm curious. What are your overall thoughts on Flow? Did you really like the film? Were you more mixed on? You're like, get out of here, Flow. Don't need you. Curious.